In conversation with Mari Edwards from Refuge, hear more about how our recent funding is changing the lives of victims and survivors of domestic abuse. Thank you so much for joining me, Mari. Do you want to just tell me a little bit about yourself and your job role?
Of course, thank you very much for having me, Olivia. So I'm Mari Edwards. I work for Refuge, which is the largest provider of domestic abuse services in England. I've worked at Refuge for quite a long time. I've been there for 12 years now. And the role that I'm doing at the moment is that I am the head of sector alliances and partnerships. This is a fairly new role to Refuge. I've been in post since about October last year, and the post was created and developed very much in recognition that we, as an organisation, are prioritising partnership work within the violence against women and girls sector, and also beyond that sector as well, and really kind of valuing that partnership work and the positive impact that that can have on all of our service users that come to any of our services.
Amazing. 12 years is a really long time as well,
Yeah.
isn't it? What were you doing before your current position? How
Yeah,
did
so
that
I've
change?
Yeah, I've always worked in service delivery, so kind of direct frontline services. And that's what I did when I first came to Refuge. I managed community-based services. So our community-based service, we essentially kind of divide our services into our community-based services and then our accommodation-based services. So for our community-based services, they are for survivors who are still living in their own home, or they might be living with friends or with family, and who want that ongoing support, but within their own community.
Hmm.
Our accommodation-based services are kind of otherwise known as refuges. So they are emergency accommodation that women and their children can access when they need to flee from their own home. So I managed the community-based service when I first worked at Refuge, and then over the years I've kind of um, developed in my career and became a senior manager. And then for the last 3.5 years, I've been the head of services. So that's overseeing the majority of our frontline services, which includes those community-based services and refuges as well. And so as Refuge, we have services in London, we have services outside of London, and one of our most well-known, probably most well-known and truly national service is the National Domestic Abuse Helpline. So that's the one that's quite widely publicised. It's the 0808 2000 247 number for that helpline. And as the number suggests, it's open 24 hours a day and 7 days a week.
You were very much involved in the services during the pandemic then. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah. So I was the head of services from about 2019 to just the tail end of 2022. Um, and so uh, was very much kind of in the thick of it throughout the pandemic, which obviously started in 2020 and which had, as I'm sure you'll know, a huge impact on all survivors of domestic abuse and violence against women and girls.
Yeah.
And we, as well as other people in the sector, really recognised that there was really a dual pandemic. There was obviously COVID, but there was also the pandemic of violence against women and girls, and the increased risk to women and girls who were being, through lockdown, through being not able to access the help or the community support that they may have previously been able to do. So we as an organisation, as did other organisations in our sector and nationally, not just in the violence against women and girls sector, but we had to, change fairly quickly in the way that we delivered our service. We had to adapt quickly. We knew that we were going to be able to see fewer women face to face. And so we made sure we had the technology to be able to offer different types of supports. That might be through live chats on our helpline. It could be just over the phone. It could be, being able to kind of WhatsApp survivors. And of course, all of that communication needs to come with an appropriate risk assessment as to the best way is of communicating. But those old ways that we had of being able to access survivors, maybe when they were going to their GP or maybe when they were dropping their children off at school, those opportunities were gone, just like that. And so the whole sector really needed to change and adapt in the way that we supported the survivors. And we also saw an increase in the number of people making contact with our National Domestic Abuse Helpline as well.
I can imagine it was a difficult time because a lot of people couldn't leave and couldn't access that support. But it was great to hear how you were able to sort of rally around that and work out the best way to sort of still reach these people. And helpline is a really great thing to have. It's great that you're able to train so many staff and make sure that they can help in all ways, because domestic violence isn't just physical, it's emotional, mental, and there are kids involved as well with a lot of these women, so they need support.
Absolutely. Yeah. And the recent Domestic Abuse Act has now recognised children as victims in their own rights. Now, of course, we all know that children who are living in those environments or who are witnessing or subjected to those environments are victims, but now it's been enshrined in this law, which is important, and it's important that we do recognise that effect that it has on children. And just to go back to your earlier points, Olivia, I think that's such an important message, which is that domestic abuse isn't always physical. There are people who have suffered from domestic abuse their whole lives and who have never been physically hurt, but that there's that coercion and there's that control, that manipulation, that emotional abuse, psychological abuse, and the absence of physical violence absolutely does not diminish that person's experience and does not make that experience any different to others who are survivors of domestic abuse. So thank you very much for raising that. That's incredibly important.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that stops a lot of people from coming forward because I think they think, well, I've not been hit, so it can't be abuse, but it definitely is. And I think having a helpline and having that advice online where they can, read up on their treatment and realize that they are experiencing abuse, it really helps them know that they're not alone and they've got other people who are going through the same things.
Absolutely, they're not alone. They will be believed because they will have had the perpetrator of the abuse, so that could be a husband, a boyfriend, an ex-boyfriend, or a family member telling them over maybe a course of many months or even many years, nobody's going to believe you, all sorts of things that kind of diminishes that person. And we, as an organisation, are here to say that we are here to listen. We will believe you. We do believe you, and we are here to support you in your journey to safety and in your journey to recovery as well.